a hometown hero,
feel responsible for baseball in this city,
is leaving.
Are you f***ing serious?
For an arch rival.
Dude, he's the biggest villain in Wisconsin sports history.
Biggest? No, but it is a betrayal.
This week on Open Record,
when he comes back, he's going to get booed.
A baseball bombshell.
We're all here today because we lost Craig.
Leaves Milwaukee in a council of despair.
Craig has lost us, and he's lost our community also.
From the Fox 6 studios, this is Open Record. I'm your host, Brian Polson. Executive producer Sarah Smith is on another assignment this week, but I'm excited to welcome Fox 6's Ted Perry back to the podcast. Hey, Ted.
Hey,
and first time in the digital studio, because last time you were in a cold ice tub.
This is true.
So this is a little warmer, a little more comfortable.
Shirt on this time.
Shirt on the
Dry
whole
as a
time.
bone.
That's right.
Yeah.
And of course, we have Fox 6 sports reporter Lily Zhao here. Lily, thank you for coming on the podcast again.
Good to be back.
And good reason that she is here. First of all, let me tell you, we are recording this episode on Wednesday, November 8th, for release on Thursday, November 9th. The dust is beginning to settle from a figurative bomb that rattled the psyche of Wisconsin sports fans earlier this week. Milwaukee Brewers manager Craig Counsell is leaving. That's not the bombshell. It's the fact that where he's going is Chicago. It's the Chicago Cubs. Lee, I'm going to start with you because since Monday, it has felt like one of those where were you moments. Tell me about where you were when you found out. I think we all knew Craig Counsell was probably leaving, but when you found out he was going to the Cubs.
I was at home getting ready for work, and I remember looking at my phone, and I legitimately said, wow. Me, like the rest of, I'm sure, Wisconsin or any Brewers fan, was shocked, stunned, because the Cubs weren't even on the radar to sweep or to take Craig Counsell, because you remember they still had a manager in David Ross.
A pretty good one.
A pretty good one. Well, for Cubs fans, not so much. But I think everyone was thinking either it was going to be a couple options. He was going to come back, he was going to take a year off, or he was going to manage potentially with the Mets or the Guardians because he'd interviewed there. But nowhere on the radar was Chicago. And just reading the reports, it was this deal kind of came together in a couple days after November 1st when his contract expired with the Brewers, and they just got something done. But I certainly did not anticipate Chicago being on the radar, and for them to be able to give him the sum of money that they did was another thing that was shocking, because it was a way bigger number than I think the Brewers at the time were going to offer him.
When you saw that, though, did you look at that and go, this is going to be a really long day?
Yes. I think, again, had he gone anywhere else or maybe returned or took a year off, it wouldn't have had the same, explosive feel. But like you mentioned, because it was Chicago, it was, oh, here we go. Like, this is going to be a big day of what does this mean? Why Chicago? Guys are stunned, et cetera, et cetera.
Ted, same question for you. How did you learn about this, and what was your initial reaction?
I was at Marquette University having lunch with my buddy Dan DeWert, who works for my Marquette, and my buddy Dennis Miller. Ironically, two guys that I most often go to Brewer games with. We're always at opening day together. I take one or both of them and their wives to a game once a year. And my phone started blowing up. The first text message I got was from my nephew in Chicago. Thanks for the manager. We'll take good care of him. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then boom, boom, I'm reading my things. And then my phone rings from my Cubs season ticket holding owner brother, who is a rabid Cubs fan, who has great Cubs seats in Wrigley. I'm from Chicago. Full disclosure, I was born and raised a Cubs fan. And when I moved to Wisconsin, I could have two teams for a while. And then in 1998, when they became a National League team, I had to choose, and I chose the Brewers. And so I have that history of being a Cubs fan, but my family are all Cubs fan, and their reaction was mixed. They do like David Ross. A lot of them do. They like him because he was on that 2016 World Series winning team, and they thought he was doing an okay job with not a lot to work with. And then they started getting some big stars down there, and they were coming along okay. They just missed the playoffs this year. So it was a where were you moment indeed. I'll always remember where it was because it sort of reverberated. You could see all the students on their phones. So
Now we started this out with this whole where were you moment, which really sounds like one of those core memories for a lot of people. And if you talk to someone outside of the Midwest and you tell them that the change of your baseball team's manager became some sort of where were you moment, they would go, what are you talking about? This is baseball. This is a business. What's the big deal? I don't know, Ted, what's the big deal?
The big deal is this. Lily's right. If he was going to the Mets or even the Guardians, which I thought would have been a very interesting move, it would have been a sports story. We still would have had Lily up in the A block. We would have Tim in the A block, but it wouldn't have been the guttural reaction that it was. Hometown guy, played high school at Whitefish Bay, lives in Whitefish Bay, has done an amazing job with not a lot of resources on a small market team, getting toward that mountaintop, never quite getting to the mountaintop, but he was our guy. And he was our guy taking on the Mets and the Cubs and the Dodgers and all the big market clubs. And we felt we might win it with this guy. He's a great manager. This assures one thing. He's now finally going to win Manager of the Year.
Yes.
Has one final kick in the shorts
Yes.
for Milwaukee. They're going to give him, and it's already been decided, they just haven't announced it, dollars to donuts. He is winning National League Manager of the Year this year. So that's why it's a big deal. He was kind of us versus the world, and now he's gone and joined the world against us. And that's why people are taking it so personally. Whatever you feel about that, whatever your thoughts are on that, is he a traitor? Is he taking the best business deal? I'll let each individual fan decide that. But that's why it's such a big deal.
Lily, from your perspective, are you hearing from other, I don't know, sports reporters or other people you talk to from around the country who say either, wow, I can't believe it, or this is being overblown?
I think outside of the country, when you don't have that deep-rooted, like Ted growing up in Chicago, picking the Brewers, when you don't have that deep-rooted connection to either team and you're just, maybe not living in the Midwest and you're thinking, yeah, it sucks for, Brewers fans, good for Cubs fans, but like, it's just another move at the end of the day. Like, teams swap managers all the time, and that's what they did. But I think if you have such a deep-rooted connection to either team, and these are such bitter rivals, that'd be like, Aaron Rodgers going to the Bears. Something like that, where you're just like, I cannot believe this happened. I understand.
Brett Favre going to the Vikings.
Yes,
maybe.
yes.
Okay, but he didn't go directly to the Vikings.
No,
for
correct.
one.
He went through
And two,
via
New York.
New York, right?
Yeah.
He's not from here. That's the thing.
Yeah,
You can't.
no, that's
Counsell
true.
is from
That's
here.
true.
He knows full well the reaction people are going to have, and that had to weigh on him. And he still had to say, I still want to go. He says it's his best chance to grow professionally and to perhaps to win a title, and you can't fault a guy for that.
But considering that background, being being raised in Whitefish Bay, he has family still here. His boys in Whitefish Bay playing baseball locally, having a park named after him, with all of that local connection, two parks, with knowing that connection and knowing what it means to be a Brewers fan and what the Cubs mean to Brewers fans. I think maybe the thing that surprised me the most was hearing that others have said, well, this has long been his dream job. How can you be Mr. Milwaukee, Mr. Whitefish Bay, and have managing the Cubs be your dream job? Was that a surprise to you?
I haven't heard anyone say that, and if they are, then they know something that the rest of us don't. Craig Counsell keeps a lot of things very close to the vest, and if that has been his dream job, I've never heard him vocalize them, but that's a better question for Lily.
I haven't either, but that being said, I'm not sure if it was his, dream job, but
I admit I haven't heard him say it. I'm relying on quotes from people who were supposedly sources or people connected to him that have been reported elsewhere, where they've said, and I don't know if it was Sports Illustrated, who it was, somebody put it out there that this has been his dream job. Maybe it's an unnamed source. Maybe it's not true. I don't know. But that's what I think surprised me is it's one thing to say they made the best offer. And it was convenient because, hey, they're close to home. He's got kids that are going to be in college. You can go see their sporting
What
events,
other job is close to home?
Milwaukee.
Running the Milwaukee Brewers.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
true.
really close to home.
Yeah, that's a good point. So let's talk about the actual, what's actually happened here, because one of the questions, stepping back for those who don't know, why is he leaving Milwaukee at all? So Craig Counsell, his contract was up, and during the season, the ball club and Counsell, they made the decision, we're just going to let this go until the end of the year. Let him explore sort of free agency. So I think, was it kind of a foregone conclusion that most likely he was leaving, or do you think there was still a pretty strong sense that he may come back after he sort of tests the water? Is this leverage to get more money out of the Brewers, or what? What was the sense prior to this announcement?
Well, we were told by, Brewers owner Mark Attanasio that Craig obviously had expressed interest. Let's talk about this after the year is done. I want to explore the open market, see what's out there. And then he was telling the media that, when did you get an inkling? Would Craig be leaning more towards taking a year off, spending time with his family, or would he want to come back and manage in Milwaukee or elsewhere? And he said he got an indication early September that Craig wanted to manage, but potentially might not be managing in Milwaukee. So that was kind of the debate all along, because I think, earlier in the year, we were all talking about maybe Craig does take a year off. I mean, his boys are going to college. His 2 daughters are still in high school. It's spend more time with family and then get back into it. He's got a good enough name and reputation where he could do that. But there was that inkling 2 months ago saying that he has that itch to continue to manage. And, Mark Attanasio said, I wanted to do my due diligence and give him that opportunity to do so. But at the end of the day, they gave him the offer, the best they could do, because he was asked about matching the Cubs and didn't really answer that question about if they wanted to match $40 million. But they,
or whether they had the opportunity to match the $40 million.
But they said, at the time we wanted to make him the highest paid manager, had a deal on the table. Reportedly, it was a long-standing multi-year offer. And of course, Craig chose to go elsewhere.
5.5. Is that the number you're hearing too?
I was hearing 5 to 5.5.
Which would have made him the highest paid manager on the base value, not to include incentives. Other managers have incentives that might push them.
So the Cubs come in at $8 million a year, which just blows what was already a record
Absolutely.
offer out of the water, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Which makes you wonder, as you said, the Cubs had a manager, David Ross, to offer $8 million for another manager when you already have one. What does that say about, number one, what they see in terms of the value of Craig Counsell, and maybe number two of where this takes sort of, I guess, pay for managers from here? Because I don't remember this kind of a bidding war for a baseball manager.
Yeah, I think he wanted to reset the market, and that's, what he had talked about, just making the level pay for managers a little bit higher because, when I was looking at the numbers, I was kind of shocked at how not little they made because grand scheme of things, millions of dollars is a lot of money, but how little compared to other sports that these managers do make. So he does reset the market value in that regard. But as for David Ross, I'm sure it was quite the shock knowing that, you're waking up that morning like, I'm the manager of the Cubs and tough year, we didn't make the playoffs, but we're back at it. And he gets told after 4 years they're booting him. I think he's still a great guy, but I think for them there was Craig Counsell, fresh there for the taking, close proximity, knows the division well, is a great manager. We kind of want to get him, and that's what they did.
I think, like you said, there was also this, obviously, the surprise factor because we knew about the Mets possibility. David Stearns, having been president of baseball operations in Milwaukee, has that same job in New York. They have that connection, and they spend a lot of money, so that made some sense. But of course, it takes him far away from home. And then you had the Guardians as an option. I didn't hear any buzz, anyone even talking about Chicago. So it does raise the question of how did that connection even happen? Did Craig Counsell pursue the Cubs? Did the Cubs quietly pursue Craig Counsell? Do we know the answer to that?
I haven't heard yet.
At this point, we do not. And there's a very good article in The Athletic today about how the process went down. It was very secretive. That question is still unanswered. Maybe we'll learn Lily Monday when he's addressing the crowd in Wrigley, the media in Wrigley.
Yes, yeah. The tentative day for him to talk to the public with a press conference at Wrigley is Monday.
Because I do wonder if word had gotten out in advance, if there had been some buzz and the enormous public reaction you can imagine, how much pressure would there have been on Mark Attanasio and Brewers ownership to say, yeah, that's really expensive, but we've got to go. We've got to try to beat the Cubs offer here.
I think Attanasio might be getting a bad rap here. I think when you put out $5.5 million, you're trying. There's two schools of thought here. There's one that he is a rising star in baseball who's been really robbed of the Manager of the Year award a couple of times, or really could have gotten it and didn't it. Maybe robbed is a little strong of a word. And there's also a thing, okay, he's only won one of 9 playoff series he's been in. He's won one time. 2018, they beat the Colorado Rockies, then lost to the Dodgers, right? And every other one, correct me if I'm wrong here, has been a loss, right?
Yes, correct.
Every other time they've been in the playoffs. He has not taken a team to the World Series. He has not proven that he can. You could say, well, it's Milwaukee. Okay, well, it's Milwaukee with the MVP in 2018 and a darn good pitching staff and a veteran catcher who was helping out. So the jealous types will say, he hasn't done anything. Really, he's taken a small market club and made them competitive in a division that has Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, which are always
and
kind of
St.
more
Louis
about.
and Chicago. I mean,
But
he's made
St.
them
Louis and Chicago,
competitive
right.
every year.
This is true. So we're going to find out if this is worth it at the end of 5 years and $40 million.
Right. I was going to say, I think his first year in Chicago is going to be a big prove it year to say, I was worth $8 million a year and more, and I was worth a lot of this tension with the fans because me coming to Chicago was your best bet to getting a winning team to make it deep in the playoffs. That's why you hired me, and that's why I wanted to go to Chicago. I think they need to prove it in his first year that that was the right move to make, because I think anything short of winning the division next year, the division crown, will have a lot of people being like, well, you sure you wanted to go to Chicago? Because you guys weren't really good. So it's going to be a big prove it year, I think, for him.
Especially if the Brewers come back and win the division next
Right.
year. That will be a big ha-ha to him. But, he had to think all of this out. He had to know how it was going to play out. I don't think his park would be vandalized. And by the way, whoever did that, were you trying to make Counsell look bad? Because you just made yourself look bad by writing a,
I did get a
derogatory
kick
word.
out of, and I think it was
ridiculous.
I think it was Bart Winkler who said this, but they talked about what was actually written, because of course on television we blur out what the word is, so you wonder, what did it say?
It's a 3-letter word that also can be used to describe a mule.
Right. So, but what he tweeted was, even for vandals, like, that's Wisconsin nice.
It
like
is,
they could have
right.
said so much
Yes,
worse.
right.
Well, if you're going to deface it, I'm not suggesting anyone ever do
Please
anything
don't.
like that. It
Please
was a terrible,
don't.
terrible idea. But it certainly doesn't represent, I think, sort of the Milwaukee fan base. It does represent I think it does signify the overall feeling of hurt and betrayal that a lot of Brewers fans feel, that someone went to that extent. I mean, is this sort of a scar for Brewers fans that's going to last?
I will say I think it will be a scar, but it might be one where it's forgiven if, I shouldn't say forgiven, but lessened. The impact might be lessened if nothing comes of the Cubs in the postseason. If it's just, it's kind of they flirt with it or they get in, they lose in the first round, fine. But I think it gets worse if Craig Counsell takes the Cubs to a World Series, wins it or not, takes them there. I think that will be another big blow. But I guess time will tell, if that comes true.
I want to ask about Mark Attanasio and his response, because one of the things he said in his first interview with the media after this was announced, he talked about how we lost Craig, but then he followed that up with, but Craig lost us. He lost our community. What do you make of that statement? What do you take away from that? What do you hear in that? Were you surprised by it? I'd let you.
My initial reaction was, he's not one of us anymore, and he's lost us, and he's an outsider now. That was my first reaction to it. The counter of that is, really? Because he's still staying here. He's not moving. His kids are staying in the high school they are in now. He's staying in the home that he is in now, which, by the way, is like 4 blocks from me. I see him out and about all the time. And so he still says, I'm a member of this community. The question is, can he have it both ways? Can he say, no, I'm still one of you. I'm just coaching the team you hate.
Can the manager of the Chicago Cubs live in Whitefish Bay?
Yes, he can. He's going to. And
who would have ever thought that would have, if you didn't say it was Craig Counsell, if you said the manager of the Chicago Cubs is going to have a house in Whitefish Bay, you would have said, why?
Well, right.
That's nuts.
Because in this case, he's from here. And that's the whole thing. And that's the whole legacy question that's going to come of this. Donald Driver, you know what the smartest thing Donald Driver ever did?
No clue.
He did not go play for the Carolina Panthers in his end of his career, which would not have probably been a great fit for him anyway. He said, nope, I'm retiring a Packer. Robin Yount could have gone and chased a ring a la Paul Molitor in Toronto in the mid-90s. No one forgives Paul Molitor. No one begrudges Paul Molitor for going for that ring, and I think he got 2 of them in Toronto. But they love Robin for staying, and they love Driver for staying, and they love Bart Starr for staying. So if you were going to make a Mount Rushmore of athletic heroes in Wisconsin, you're going to put Bart Starr there before you're putting Rodgers and Favre, because he won 2 Super Bowls. You're going to put Giannis, especially if he stays his whole career, right? And then you fill in the blanks. Robin Yount's the other one, right? Okay, so you got Robin Yount, you got Bart Starr, you got Giannis. Who's that 4th? Had Craig Counsell stayed here and won a World Series, you could argue he's that 4th face on Mount Rushmore, because he was here as a player, played in the playoffs with him, and he brought that team to the promised land.
But he just went and got elected president of Russia. I mean, he
a little strong.
That's hyperbolic.
Yeah.
It's hyperbolic.
But he takes himself out of the running for that 4th spot now, right? I mean, if he does it with the Cubs and he fills that personal quest, how are you going to, all these people say it's betrayal. you get dangled $8 million.
Oh, absolutely.
And see
Yeah.
how much you want to dig in
Right.
your roots.
I think it's also, and this is my opinion, looking at it objectively and logistically for him. Yeah, like you guys mentioned, he's close to home, he's got kids here, etc. But when you're presented an offer that's probably double what your current employer is going to give you, you're going to a team that has a lot of upside. They have money on their payroll. It's a bigger profile job because of Chicago. And you also get a new challenge, right? He talked about, it was kind of time. I needed something new. It's hard to pass up, especially when that amount is double. I think it's again, do you want that challenge, that new, the money that comes with it, etc.? Do you take that, or do you say, hey, I'm going to stay home, take what I'm currently being offered, and stay with not the same team, but a team with a lot of familiar faces? And of course, you went the other route.
Well, I want to bring up something with Mark Attanasio, though, because I know you said you think maybe he's got a little bit of too much heat over this. But there are two things. First of all, that comment about our community. I do think it's interesting that you have an owner using the sort of our community, like he's not one of us anymore, from a guy with a mansion in Malibu
Right.
who has just held a gun to the head of the city or of the state, saying maybe he hasn't said it with his own words. He certainly hasn't objected to the surrogates who are saying it for him, that if you don't give us hundreds of millions of dollars, we'll leave and go to Nashville or somewhere else.
Hold on. I'm going to call you on that because the Brewers have never said that.
No, I said he's never said it. He's never come out and objected to it.
But his surrogates have never said it either. Who said it?
Well,
They didn't say it when they were building Miller Park, and
Do you
they
think
haven't
the
said.
did the lawmakers in Madison come up with this plan on their own? Who gave them the idea that the Brewers are going to leave? Where did that come from? And have you seen the ownership of the Brewers step out and say, guys, we would never leave? No, that's ridiculous.
I've heard him say they want to stay here and they want to be a part of it here. And the guy who is in charge of business operations is from here and knows the importance of the team, Rick Schlesinger. So I'm not. The Brewers have their own PR staff. They don't need me. And I'm talking here as a fan, by the way. You asked me to be on this podcast because I'm a longtime season ticket holder who, I don't cover the team. Lily covers the team. So if you want X's and O's, I'm speaking as a fan here, the guy who pays money to go to the games. But I will say the Brewers, and I covered the building of Miller Park, so I know this. It's a very daft way they've done it here. Deftly, not daft, deftly way they've done it here. They've never said we're leaving, and they haven't said it yet. You can say, oh, they've implied it. Have they? So let's get back to your original point. I'm just saying
someone on their behalf has implied it to the point that state lawmakers felt like they were under the gun and they've got to come up with this. But my point being, I haven't heard ownership step up at any point and say, guys, that's ludicrous. We would never leave. We love this community. They've allowed it to happen because there's going to be a windfall to help with stadium renovations. At the same time, I guess the question that I'm raising here
I haven't seen Mark Attanasio and Sendex quite often as I see Craig Counsell. That's your point.
Fair, there you go.
Yeah,
now beyond that, in terms of a lot of people have also said, how could anyone say no to $8 million a year? But it was ownership's decision to let him explore this, to not lock him up sooner. And is there some blame to go around of saying you should have known what you had before you let it go? Was it a mistake for the Brewers to let it get to this point and to let him explore the Mets and the Guardians and then secretly the Chicago Cubs?
I don't think it was, because I think if you've he's been with the team for so long, and we talked about his roots here. He has a long-standing relationship with Mark Attanasio. I feel like if you have that level of relationship and you're comfortable with somebody and you work with them for so long and you say, hey, been here for almost a decade. I kind of wanted to see what's out there, but I don't know if I'm leaving yet. And they say, no. I mean, I think that just says a lot more than, you know what, we respect you. We're going to give you the chance to, but know that we're going to give you our best offer to keep you. I think that's what kind of happened there.
I equate it to they gave him a hall pass and he went out with their sister. I said you could ask Susie down the street. I didn't say you could go out with my sister. And that's what hurts, right? And you can't force Counsell to sign. We don't know that this wasn't Attanasio wanting to lock him up long term. I think he's gotten to the point, like Lily says, hey, what's my next challenge? And I don't know how much of this is up yours, if any of it, to ownership and management for not spending the money. But they're gun shy. They spent a lot of money on Yelich, and it hasn't paid off like they thought it would. Then they went cheap on the whole arbitration thing with Corbin Burns, which was just silly to me. What were they haggling over, Lily? $100,000?
Corbin Burns?
Yeah.
$750,000.
Okay. The guy had, clearly worth it. In good faith, give him that money, lay the groundwork to a long-term deal. And maybe that was Counsell saying, you're letting too many good guys get away. I'm supposed to make this work with leftovers and double-A guys who have done well. I can't cook this with this ingredients anymore. I want somebody who's going to go shopping at a finer store.
And going off that though, I kind of equate this to the Bucks situation, right? You know, Giannis is saying, I'm not going to sign. It's not the best time financially for me to sign. And their ownership said, bet. I'm going to go out. I'm going to get Dame, and I'm going to bring a superstar in, and Giannis signs. What do the Brewers do next? Do they swing for the fences? Whoever's out there in terms of the next manager, they bring in whoever it is, but do they swing for the fences and bring in guys who can get this team to the next level? Or is it still the same old Brewers? We're just going to hire a manager, keep the guys that we have, and ho-hum, see if we can get things done. So I'm curious to see what this move by Craig Counsell does and how this ownership team from Milwaukee responds.
So let me talk about the last couple of things before we go into off the record. And one of them is the Brewers don't have a manager right now. Mm-hmm. So what's next? What do you think is going to happen? What are the names you're hearing? What as a fan, what would you like to see? You know,
I'm kind of curious as a fan what you would like to see.
I would have liked to see and I said this to Lily during a commercial break last night. I wish if he wasn't coming back, he would have told them sooner, so we could have gone out and gotten Stephen Vogt.
Yes.
The former, he was with the team for a while, very popular in the clubhouse, backup catcher. I want a backup catcher. I have just got done reading a great book called The Tao of the Backup Catcher. These guys know the game like no one else because they have to. They don't have
I know
the
a backup
skill.
catcher who won a World Series as a backup catcher who's out of a job right now.
Who's that?
David Ross.
David Ross, right, exactly. I don't think David Ross would be the worst hire, by the way.
Which would be funny if they swapped.
Which would be funny if they swapped. But look, what's the market paying? Because the Mets went out and got Carlos Mendoza. They're paying him a total of $3.75 over 3. That's $1 million plus each year. It's quite a difference. If you thought the Mets were going to throw money at Counsell, and then they get this guy for the Yankees bench coach. Counsell had no managerial experience. We were all like, what? Are you sure about this? Smart guy, local guy, understand it. Proved to be a brilliant move. Fantastic manager. You don't know. The Mets went out and got Buck Showalter, who's got such experience. That was a, turd in the punch bowl. It just didn't work. So you don't know who's proven and who's ready to go. Ricky Weeks was the name floated out. My initial reaction was, really? Well, you know what? He's been with the system. He's doing the same thing that Counsell did, doing front office work, knowing he was popular with the fans. I would love to see a Molitor maybe come back, but he's 66. Does he want to come back, and does he have the energy? He was a one-time manager of the year with the Twins. So there are names out there that we're going to hear of, and there are names that we're not going to hear of. I'm not smart enough to go, this is the guy you got to go get. So I'm going to defer to Lily.
Yeah, there isn't a Bruce Bochy, a type like him on the market for the Brewers to get. Stephen Vogt, I think, would have been, I think we were talking about this in the sports office, hey, Vogt would be a pretty good guy if Counsell leaves, but then, Cleveland snags him. So again, looking at the logical name that will be floated around, Pat Murphy, bench coach, has been with Craig Counsell since 2016. Does he want the job, and would he be up for the challenge? He would be the logical internal hire.
I'd love it.
Right. Pat Murphy would be the logical hire. Ricky Weeks is another name. And then you're kind of going outside in terms of who else can they get?
I've heard Don Mattingly. I wonder, is there any pressure on ownership to have it be a name that's a bit of a splash? Even if it's not necessarily the smartest move, like you bring up somebody in internal hire, a lot of fans, maybe not the really knowledgeable ones, but some might go, who or really is a name like a Don Mattingly?
None of that talk matters until April. And we'll find out how good they are.
Yeah.
He or she. Well,
because the Mets, they hired Carlos Mendoza, and fans are like, who? So I don't think that name factor matters, but it's Don Mattingly. Joe Espada from the Astros was floated around, but he could take Dusty Baker's job. There are guys in the bench coach, the hitting coach realm in the MLB that those names have been floating around as to potential hires, but it might be somebody who, like the Cubs took Counsell. It's not even on our radar, but I don't think the name factor so much matters.
Okay, last question before off the record, and that is this. The calendar is marked. I believe it's May 27th. Is that right?
At AmFam.
May 27th that the Cubs are coming.
Yeah, but they're going to meet in spring training. I know regular season,
sure.
Yeah.
But they're going to see each other a lot in Arizona.
But okay, all right. There's a hardcore group of fans that will be there.
Where the heckles are louder.
Because they can be louder.
But you know that still, May 27th at AmFam, sure. It's going to be a sellout. Right. It's going to be crazy. What do you expect? Lily, I'll start with you. When the Cubs come, to town with Craig Counsell as manager?
You know, I think Craig Counsell will get a mix of boos and cheers. I don't think we're gonna hear straight boos, but I think that might be the atmosphere. But that's just my opinion.
I disagree with you. I think
You're
you're
gonna- a lot more
going to
boos?
hear 98% boos.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely. This is the fans who are thinking of this as a betrayal.
So they're automatically buying that ticket for that game right now. Being like, we're gonna go there.
I don't buy Cub tickets. All right, I have a season ticket plan, and I get to pick the games I want to. I don't do Cub games because it's ugly, and it's not just Cub fans who are ugly. It brings out the worst in Brewer fans too. It's just an ugly scene. So for the last couple of years, I have not bought Cub tickets. I just don't want to be involved in it.
This year you are.
That game I am.
Exactly.
Well, and that's what I wonder is,
I've already emailed my ticket
But
guy.
that's what I
Like,
wonder.
I want 4
Yeah.
for that one.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's what I wonder is because when you look at a typical Cubs Brewers game at AmFam, there is a strong Chicago contingent in the crowd.
Yes.
Do you think it will be a little bit of a different balance this time because the motivation will be much stronger on the side of Milwaukee fans to want to be there for that moment? I don't know if Cub fans will care quite as much. Maybe they will. Will they? I don't know.
Maybe at Wrigley when they, if they debut earlier
Wrigley, but
at
yeah,
Wrigley.
right.
Yeah. But I still think there's going to be a big
Yeah.
Cubs faction in Milwaukee that day.
It'll be
that
so,
week.
and like I was at the game when Paul Molitor came back as a Blue Jay at Old County Stadium, and it was a 5-minute standing ovation, and it was beautiful. He had to step out of the box. He was so moved by it because no one begrudged him. The team was so bad, and he had a right to go chase that ring, and he got one. And so when he came back as a Blue Jay and stepped in that box, the crowd it was amazing. It was really a lovely scene, and that brought out the best in Brewer fans. I think you're going to see a lot of boos that day. I don't boo people. I don't. If they give an effort, I don't. I only boo lack of effort. It's the baseball coach in me.
And I will say this though. The playoff game the Brewers played, against the Diamondbacks, and Jesse Winker comes to bat. No one really wanted him in that postseason lineup, and they booed him. My heart felt for him because I'm thinking your hometown fans are booing you because it wasn't your choice to be on the roster. They put
Right.
you there. So I'm thinking Craig Counsell having to come back and hear an entire ballpark where you've been at home for many years and they're booing you. I wonder what that's going to feel like internally to him. And I know he's going to say it and keep it, pretty kosher with the media, but I wonder deep down if it's going to be like,
He's
man,
smart
that
enough
really
to be
hurts.
diplomatic and to say, I understand
Yes.
why they were doing
Yes.
that. And he'll probably close his eyes and see that paycheck and go, okay, just be cool.
That's okay.
Yeah. I get it.
You know
We're okay,
what?
we're okay.
The worst thing you can have in sports is apathy. This is a rivalry that has just gone to the next level. There is anything but apathy between the Brewers and Cubs now.
Yeah.
And these games have always been fun. So this is going to be next level of intensity.
And that's a good time for us to go off the record. This is the part of the podcast, by the way, where we have a little fun, get a little more casual. We talk about,
We weren't being casual?
we answer a question for which we have not prepared. Let's put it
Okay.
that way, okay?
Okay.
And Sarah Smith, our executive producer, is usually here to ask us that question. She is not, but she has provided me with this, which is an envelope that has the surprise question inside.
I'm hoping
so
it's
I don't
Thanksgiving
even
food
know.
related.
It's
don't think-
always
Lily, I don't
something
think
food
it's
related, but it's
You don't even know.
I have no
Okay, here we
idea.
go.
She says this question is a two-parter. Thanksgiving coming up in a few weeks. So, what is the optimal time to sit down to eat Thanksgiving dinner? And what dish better be on the table?
Oh, okay. I know people have strong feelings about this. One of my coworkers, who shall remain nameless, was just told her family is eating at noon, and she's not happy about that because she wants a later thing.
I have a different take on that, but I'll.
Okay.
you go first.
Well, it's so weird for me because I've worked Thanksgiving for so many years here. Like my family doesn't even invite me to Thanksgiving anymore because they're just assuming I'm working. And now that I have a little bit of seniority, I don't have to work.
That's the reason they're
Yeah.
giving you.
Yeah. So I sort of have to let them know I'm free. I think about 5 o'clock. I like to watch the parade. I like to watch a little football. I like to get a workout in, maybe play a little touch football, and then come and settle down and have a cocktail and eat. So 5, 6 o'clock. I like a Thanksgiving dinner being dinner.
My family's a little different.
Okay.
So my mom loves to cook. So she's been preparing all week. So all her stuff is kind of done already and prepped the day before. So she'll get up in the morning and she'll cook the whole feast. So normally what my family does is 11:30 noonish, we'll sit down and have the full spread and then we'll eat it throughout the day. and we'll watch some parades and football.
See, when
I
you
can't
said
eat that big that early.
Oh, I'm ready. I'm
when
ready.
you said there was this controversy over noon, I thought, oh, wait till he hears, because for me, typically it ends up being around 1 or 2 p.m. It's an early dinner, and part of the reason for that is sometimes you want family gone so that you can enjoy the rest of your evening. Maybe you get some people out of the house, but no, I think I like the big meal early, and then you've got you sit down, you rest, you take a nap on the couch, and then you go, I'm going to have some more of that left.
And you
over.
go back
And
for
you
round
keep
two.
picking. You go back for round 2.
There you go.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that has, and if now I know a lot of retailers got blowback when Black Friday bled into Thursday and became a Thanksgiving evening thing. But for a period of time, I used to be one of those crazy people who would go out on Thursday night and do some shopping. And I was like, hey, dinner's already done. Now I'm out and I'm getting some shopping done. And it was a good time. So I'm okay with the earlier one, but I get it. I don't have strong feelings. If family invited me and said we're doing it at 5 p.m., I'd say, okay, I'll be there.
Okay. Now, the dish that better be on the table, that's part 2 of this question. Obviously, turkey is obvious. It's too obvious of an answer.
The meat, yes.
I like the green beans with almonds.
Oh, yeah.
What do you call
like
that?
a green bean casserole?
No, it's just the green bean with almonds. That's what our family already
Oh,
does.
okay. Well, I haven't had that, but
Yeah.
it sounds
Sounds good.
delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
I like both. You Lily? How's it?
I'm boring. I like a good mashed potato and gravy.
Nothing
Okay.
wrong with
Gotta be
that.
there. Oh, it's so
Now,
good.
but for me, there's not a holiday meal if you have a holiday meal and you don't have macaroni and cheese, it needs mac. Now, my mom, when I was growing up, she used to. That was how I knew it was Thanksgiving mornings. You get up and she would have the casserole dishes, and she'd be slicing like sharp cheddar, like blocks of sharp cheddar cheese. She would cut them into slices and then lay the slices on each layer.
Ooh.
So there would be 3 layers of cheese within this thing. And as she
And
cut
you're
the
not even a
layers-
Wisconsin kid.
No,
This
St. Louis.
is
No,
Missouri.
but St. Louis and Milwaukee, I've always thought have a lot of similarities. They're beer towns, they're baseball cities. So we loved our cheese, and so there'd be the strips of sharp cheddar. My brother and I would sneak into the kitchen and run off with slices of cheese. To me, actually, that's one of the great core memories of a holiday is stealing slices of cheese while mom's making the mac and cheese. So I think you got to have, and my wife makes a macaroni and cheese, different thing, loaded with all kinds of cheeses. It's actually called, the recipe, Smack Your Mama Mac and Cheese.
Nice.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so when it smacks you with cheese. It's fantastic. So I just feel like you can't have a holiday without a good mac and cheese.
I want to know, when your mother is preparing, are you in there helping, or are you watching football with Pops?
Normally I'm waking up really late.
Because Blackout Wednesday was the night before. Right?
True. No.
That's reunion time when you go home. Like when you go home to
Well-
Indy, you're going home to see old friends, right? Too?
Old friends, but also just, with this job, it's my sleeping habits are really bad. So I go to bed really late. But that being said, I'm normally waking up. It's just nice when you wake up and you go down the stairs and the smell just hits you. So I'm normally being kind of lazy and just walking and everything's done. And then I'm sitting with my dad on the couch watching football. I'll help her out this
Kale,
year,
we
guys.
didn't hear much from you, but what
Well, does
your
dessert
yeah.
count? Because it's got to be French silk pie.
That's
Oh,
good.
wow.
That's
Like
French silk pie.
homemade, though?
Last year, yes, we did make
Wow.
one. But
Wow.
usually Baker Square.
Baker Square French silk
Yes.
pie is.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
That sounds
Are
good.
there still a lot of Baker Squares left?
don't
Because I feel like they've disappeared,
so.
and that was always a holiday staple. My wife and her family would go and grab 4 pies from Baker Square. You have some pumpkin and some whatever else, but yeah, I don't know if I see those around anymore. Miss
You
the
know,
Baker
you know what
Square.
I've done to do on Thanksgiving? Like if I'm not going home, Cornish game hens.
Really?
The little itty bitty ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like that's a very Thanksgiving, like
Yeah, it's like a mini turkey.
serve yourself Thanksgiving. Yeah. All right. Well, now we know, and Thanksgiving is coming up shortly. If you have a topic you would like us to discuss on Open Record or an issue you think we should investigate for Fox 6 News, send us an email to fox6investigators@fox.com. Ted, Lily, thank you for being on the podcast.
Go Crew.
And an early happy Thanksgiving. As always, thank you to the people who make this podcast possible, including our executive producer, Sarah Smith, our editor, Dave Machuda, and our chief photographer manning the video switcher, Kale Zimney. With that, I'm Brian Polson. We'll be back next week.